Hey there, YouTube. It's your boy Redbeard, and we're back at it once again. Here today to talk about some Chaos units that could be coming to the roster for the Warriors of Chaos and possibly the Mono Gods in the upcoming 4 Champions DLC content. These units we're talking about today could also be FLC content or just rolled out with the roster update, or with the Warriors of Chaos update into the roster. So for what we know, in the Warriors of Chaos rework, I assume all the units can take marks from each god, can pick one. We don't know if it's all units yet. That's not been confirmed, but I hope so. That would be definitely the way the community would like it best, but I could see them doing less. But at the very least, I would expect Marauders, Chaos Warriors, Chosen, Chaos Knights. I think Aspiring Champions can get a whole new unit for each Mono God, but I'll go more into that later. We could also see units like Chaos Giants getting flavors for each Mono God. Marauder Horsemen, Chaos Chariots, and maybe even Hell Cannons. I mean, imagine like a Bile Cannon, or a Pulsating Pleasure Cannon, or a Hell Cannon that causes Warp Flame for Tzeentch, or maybe for Khorne, the Hell Cannon splits, its shot splits into a couple pieces that are less effective on their own, but probably do more damage overall because of the separate missiles. I believe we will also see Exalted Heroes, Chaos Lords, Chaos Sorcerer Lords, and Chaos Sorcerers being able to dedicate as well. This hopefully meaning unique mounts, and for the Sorcerers, a few extra spells from Nurgle, Tzeentch, or Slaanesh. I hope this means they are also taking a look at the Beastmen, or maybe they will in the future, and giving flavors marks for Bestigors, Minotaurs, and the Lords and Heroes for their roster. Now, for the Chaos Lords getting unique mounts, they could be, for if you go to Nurgle, you get a Rotfly, or Plague Toad, or Rot Beasts. If we see those, please, let's see those. But Chaos Lords usually get a Chaos Dragon as their final mount. That's one of their premier things. Now, we could see them get, if they take a mark, one of the SEMs, the Single Entity Monsters, that may come to the Mono God rosters, like a Toad Dragon for Nurgle, or a Slaughter Brute for Khorne, or we'll get more to those kind of units later. But we have dragons, so there are many dragons in the Warhammer universe, and we could definitely see unique flavors of Chaos Dragons. Do I think they're going to add this? I'm not sure. But, if they wanted to just give a unique flavor for each dragon, if you take the marks, imagine a dragon of Tzeentch with more avian aesthetics, perhaps more serpentine, like the Cathayan dragons, kind of similar looking to a Lizardman Quaddle. Maybe it has extra mutations, or 3 heads instead of 2. Perhaps its breath attacks deal warp flame damage, or maybe it has extra uses of its breath attacks because Tzeentch is all about fire. A dragon of Nurgle, perhaps too bloated to fly, but rather bounces and glides like a Jabberslythe. Its nauseating acid breath attacks and aura doing damage over time to its victims. But maybe also it could fly, so you could have a kind of an armada with your Rotflies, and that could be the big bad with the Rotflies flying around it. That could be pretty cool. A dragon of Khorne, a fire dragon, muscular and heavily scaled, swift and savage, frenzied on the attack, with explosively fiery breath attacks. Think, the Bloodthirster breath, where it kind of just explodes out. A dragon of Slaanesh, faster than a blink of an eye, lithe and beautiful, but brutal and stealthy. Perhaps having an ability to stealth units in an aura like the Coatl, so everything under it in a small radius would be hidden, like the Coatl. I think that would be very, very interesting for Slaanesh, who could use it to maneuver some cavalry to flank. Perhaps we could see a more elite undivided dragon in the Warpfire Dragon, a beast that consumes pure warpstone to maintain its heavily mutated form. Its breath is more powerful than other dragons, unleashing a coruscating blast of red-black lightning that disintegrates mortals, spirits, and even other creatures of magic. Now, this is a new type of Lord pack we haven't seen before, with 4 Lords in a Lord pack. Typically, we get a Lord pack with 2 DLC Lords and maybe an FLC Lord on the side. Usually a FLC or Lord on the side. Or at least that was the way it was in Game 2. A race pack with 4 Lords and potentially an FLC Lord is another thing we might have seen in Game 2. So with this 4 Lord pack, whether there will be an FLC Lord is up in the air still. Now we know that it's definitely going to be one of them is going to be Slaanesh and not Undivided. So it's Valkia, Azazel, Festus, and Village, and maybe an FLC Lord for Undivided. One could only hope, or maybe again the FLC Lord is Boris or the Red Duke, or maybe there is no FLC Lord this time around. Perhaps it will be. The 2 Lord packs were traditionally packaged with 6 units and 6 RORs, 3 for each race at the price of $10. The 4 Lord race packs came with an entirely complete roster at the price of $19. So my thoughts are, if this 4 Lord pack matches $19, we should get at least 3 units for each monogod and Undivided. Especially as it seems RORs are no longer in the package and are rolling out with every patch for free, which I'm fine with, but keep that in mind when we're considering how much content we're getting and how much that's worth, money-wise. Now, maybe they match $10 for 4 Lords, in which case I would think just 1 unit for each monogod and Undivided, making for a total of 5. So, if this is the case, the 1 unit for each god and Undivided, it would make sense to use units that could add to both the Warriors of Chaos roster and the Mono Gods at the same time, so a hybrid unit. And what better than the form of single entity monsters? So, firstly, a hybrid unit that could work for both Khorne and Undivided. We have the Slaughter Brute, a hulking, raging beast that can tear apart regiments in a single swipe. More alarming yet is when a sorcerer is nearby, you may see it feinting and parrying blows like a skilled warrior. The Slaughter Brute is to be enslaved through magic, usually by a sorcerer, or in Garm Hrotfinir's case, through ritualistic daggers. Then the controller of the Slaughter Brute can use the Slaughter Brute similar to how in real life one might use a drone, except instead of a remote control, it's through a sort of telepathy VR style. Though this is the case, a Slaughter Brute is extremely thematic to Khorne. Even though Khorne hates magic, champions of Khorne, such as Garmer, have been known to bend Slaughter Brutes to their will. Perhaps to represent its lore, it could just be buffed in melee attack and defense if, say, a Chaos Sorcerer for Undivided was nearby, or a Cultist of Khorne, or a Slaughter Priest if or when that generic character comes. For Tzeentch and Undivided, we have the Mutalith Vortex Beast. An extremely interesting unit. It has a writhing mass of tentacles and needle-like teeth for a head, but is a beast similar in size and form to a Slaughter Brute, which, in tabletop, the model of a Mutalith Vortex Beast, I believe was a conversion of the Slaughter Brute model. It would be deadly in combat, but that is not what makes it special. Not only does it have regeneration, but it has an aura of mutation. A ball of raw chaos energy and magic is anchored to its back. In lore, wisps reach out, mutating every mortal it touches, and when the vortex pulses, it can turn entire regiments into chaos spawn. There are 2 ways I think this could possibly work, perhaps up to 3 to 5 times. It has an ability when an infantry falls below 25% health, or they rout in the beast's aura, a temporary chaos spawn will spawn for up to 30 seconds. Another way I could see this work is like the changes coming to the cultist, where you have to be engaged in melee combat for 30 or 60 seconds, and then you can target an infantry unit and turn them into chaos spawn if their health is below 50%, or if they are routing. Either way, it has potential to be one of the coolest units in the game. Also, there could be an ROR called Aeson the Fallen. Aeson the Fallen is a character enough that he could even be a legendary hero. He was a chaos champion who was brutally morphed into a Mutalith Vortex beast. Now for Nurgle, I couldn't quite pick one. There's 2 good options I can think of. The first being the Bile Troll, which could come in a variety of implementations. Firstly, I could see it either as a single entity monster, or maybe even a parallel hero type, like the River Troll Hag. Either way, it would work. Similarly, it would be a slightly bigger, better combatant, and if it was a hero, it might have the Lore of Death, or instead of the Lore of Death like the River Troll Hag, it could have the Lore of Nurgle or Plague, or perhaps a selection of the 2, just 2 spells from each. Perhaps it could only have a few bound spells of each to balance it against the River Troll Hag, as it would be a stronger combatant, and have additional breath attacks. Because, of course, it is the Bile Troll. It should have probably double the amount of regular trolls have for vomit attacks, which is 3. So this Bile Troll would have at least 4, if not 6, vomit attacks. It is the Bile Troll after all. It could function similarly, again, as a hero or SEM, but its third implementation would be a regular monstrous infantry unit with roughly a dozen entities. If this were the case, this unit should become the first monstrous infantry unit with bound vomit attack abilities. I played a mod that gave all troll units 3 vomits, and it was awesome. It made trolls feel way more useful. Now 3 vomits may be overpowered for a monstrous infantry, but I would like to see all the troll units in the game get at least 1 vomit attack. Maybe through tech or lord skill trees, you might be able to get an extra vomit or 2. The Bile Trolls as a monstrous infantry unit would get base 3 vomits, though. Because, I mean, it is the Bile Trolls, after all. Now, you may think that the single vomit attack from Throg or the River Troll Hag isn't all that powerful, mostly because it's hard to aim well. Half the time it misses, no matter how you aim it. Well, when you have 12 streams of it, it's hard to miss, especially against infantry units. Even if the individual vomits are weaker, when you have several troll units with a dozen entities vomit at once, big damage time basically acts more like a flamethrower shot from like an Iron Drake or something. But yeah, if all the troll monstrous infantry units in the game had at least 1 vomit attack, they would become way more viable and not overpowered, because it would just be 1 shot and then they would go, and then they would break fairly quickly because they're trolls. I do not think it would be overpowered to add 1 vomit attack for all troll monstrous infantry units. So for another good option that could work for both Nurgle and the Warriors of Chaos would be the Basilisk. It would have several powerful abilities, whilst also becoming one of the fastest units in the Nurgle roster. First, they would have a slime trail like the Beast of Nurgle, reducing melee attack and speed of enemies within 15 meters. Then on top of that, it would function similarly to the Jabberslythe, in that it would be have both poison and constantly damage enemies in its aura. And on top of all that, it would have a Gaze of Malice ability that would do direct damage and reduce the enemy's armor when targeted. Kind of like almost a Spirit Leech or a spell of that nature. A direct damage spell. But it would be a bound ability. Perhaps it would only have 3 uses to not be overpowered. The Basilisk would have to be pretty squishy for a Nurgle or Warriors of Chaos unit, at least to balance out the rest of its power. Low melee stats and armor might do the trick. It wouldn't win battles on its own, but would be a terrifying utility piece when used in tandem with other units. Now, for this section, we're going to have to put on our tinfoil hats. It's Slaanesh. Slaanesh, for characters, units, lore in general, is lacking compared to the other mono gods. Has a lot less to work with and pull from. That being said, I've put my tinfoil hat on and tried to pull some things out for this section of the video. So, things that could work as both just for Slaanesh and Warriors of Chaos, but for both of those races. Firstly, we have the quote-unquote Chaos Gorgon, which isn't actually a Gorgon, like the Beastmen unit. It is really just a reskin version of the Dark Elves Medusa, or Medusa. Because it's a reskin, it really shouldn't even come with paid content, but it's worth a mention because it would fit very well in the Slaanesh roster and could work in the Warriors of Chaos roster as well. This unit is based off some old forlorn lore, but I suppose it could work. Again, I think the Medusa unit from the Dark Elves could be very fitting in the Slaanesh roster and it's got the ranged attack, could really add something. Second, now we're reaching into AOS. So again, this is all tinfoil hat. But I think I've said it before in other videos. If there's any races that should reach into AOS, it's the Demons of Chaos / Warriors of Chaos, sort of. The rest of the races, there is plenty of stuff to work with from lore in fantasy or end times or not AOS that we do not have to pull from AOS for the most part. There's like 1 or 2 here and there that AOS units that I would like to see, like the Dwarf Seekers or something. It's like an aspiring champion unit of Slayers that would do a ton of AoE. But I'll do more about that unit some other time. But yeah, second for Slaanesh, we have a Contorted Epitome. Definitely leans demons over Warriors of Chaos as well. So that's another kind of problem with it. It's a cool altar support unit that will absorb vigor and leadership from nearby enemies and possibly give allies perfect vigor. Fast for an altar unit, it would be a great utility piece for Slaanesh's roster. Okay, and thirdly, this is big reach, big tinfoil hat now territory. We have the Opulent Palanquin. Now, this isn't even a unit in AOS, but is based on Glutus or Scollion's mount. Just look at the model, though. It's gorgeous. Glutus would be a really cool character in Total War as well, even if he's pretty darn unlikely because he's AOS. Remember, this is Slaanesh, though. But at the same time, we now see Azazel and Sigvald in the Warriors of Chaos. I kind of feel that maybe we're done with Slaanesh Warriors of Chaos and we'll just see Slaaneshi demons at this point. But there's not a lot to pull from there either. There's only the Mask, Dakala. There's like Slivox, but he's just another the the demon, the great. He's just another greater demon of Slaanesh, whatever they're called. I forget. Yeah. But perhaps it could function similarly to the contorted epitome and being a support altar for Glutos or Scorleon. But yeah, the opulent palanquin could act as a conduit for the winds of magic, because that's how it functions for Glutos. It could also possibly, as a unit variant, have a few bound spells attached to it from Slaanesh or Light, because Glutos or Scorleon is a Light and Slaanesh caster. Again, I would not bet on this unit coming to the game, but it could be a nice support altar for a mount for lords or spellcasters. He might be... It would be slower than the rest of the army, but if you can cast Net of Amontok, that's still a very useful support unit for the Slaanesh roster. You net somebody, and then you get your guys to flank while they're netted. But yeah, shout out to Glutos or Scorleon. Really, his model is really, really cool, and he's a cool character. He represents the opposite of what Sigvald would in the ways of excess, in that he is a rotund fella, and he just loves eating. So represent all the fresh fat boys out there. You know what I'm saying? All right, one more thing, and then I promise I'm done with tinfoil. But so a unit that absolutely doesn't even I don't know of it being anywhere in Warhammer, AOS or otherwise, but a Drider. It's a D&D monster, and I'm a big D&D fan. I always loved the Drider monster. It's a hybrid between a Drow, which is a dark elf in D&D, and a giant spider. Easy translation from Drow to Druchii, and you can still call it a Drider. You could have several implementations, from an SEM to a sort of monstrous cavalry, or even a hero type. I could see it having several bound abilities, from spells to a webbing net ability. It is a spider after all. Which we just talked about how the Net of Amontok could be very useful for Slaanesh, so this could work here too. She would obviously have poison attacks and may also carry a spear to be anti-large, and this would help give her a unique role in the roster. Maybe it could even have a spitting attack, poison spitting attack like the Troglodyte. Or she throws javelins just to make her even more useful, anti-large missile. Just ideas. Remember, Driders not in Warhammer lore anywhere that I know of. Definitely feels very Slaanesh-y though, so I guess this is more an idea for modders that may be watching. But yeah, likely... let's get away from the tinfoil, and we're just gonna stay. I had to tinfoil for that section, but because Slaanesh just doesn't have a lot to work with. So ideas are, I think, necessary. Maybe some wacky ideas too. But moving on to likely DLC or FLC units that may be just for Warriors of Chaos or could find roles in the other rosters. So first we have the Chimera, a unit, and I talked about Chimera in my Archaon video, but I'll go over it again. It would function like a Manticore if a Manticore was awesome. Firstly, it would have poison attacks, better melee stats, and animations due to having 3 heads and possibly multiple tails, but at least one tail with a stinger. Like a scorpion tail. Additionally, it would have 3 breath attacks, like a dragon. They may also boost winds of magic for sorcerers mounted on them, maybe. It's a creature that is so imbibed and just it's throbbing with magic. I think like sorcerers, chaos sorcerers try to sacrifice them to get more power or something like that in their lore. There's a possible ROR unit called the Bloodshriek Chimera, whose skin is an ever translucent an ever-shifting pattern of bright colors and hues, turning translucent one moment before running like molten wax to cover and heal the rips and gashes in its tainted flesh the next. This meaning, besides a vibrant reskin, the ROR would get regeneration, or perhaps it would be better if all Chimera had regeneration to make the unit more useful in the roster and deserving of being of a higher tier than a Manticore. But yeah. Manticore should probably be dropped a tier. I don't remember what tier they are in the Warriors of Chaos currently. I think they're like 4. They should easily be a 3, if not a 2. They should be at the same level as like a Great Eagle, because they're about as useful. Maybe less, because they have the Rampage, which Chimera, I would think, would not have the Rampage, because they're much more powerful beings than Manticores. Even though they share a similar model. Chimera are bigger and more chaotic and just, yeah. I hope they wouldn't have Rampage. I really do. But yeah, the Chimera could become a mount for heroes or lords, the generic ones. And if we're lucky, Dorgar will get his second form as a Chimera. Cross the fingers. But as long as we get Chimera as a unit, I am sure modders will port a version of Dorgar as a Chimera for Archaon. Now we have the Chaos War Shrine. This is another like many of the units that could get its own flavor for all the gods, but at least fits best in the Warriors of Chaos in my opinion. It could also act as a good mount option, possibly for Sorcerer Lords. It's basically a giant howdah, born by 2 giants with a magical shrine on top. That is, all full of chaos energy. It would function similarly to a War Mammoth War Shrine, with the giver, the Mammoth has the Giver of Glory, Favor of the Ruinous Powers, and Encourage abilities, giving leadership and melee buffs to nearby units. I imagine it actually being fairly decent in melee, as the giants kind of jump and stomp around. Would definitely not be the likes of a mammoth in this category, but would make up for it with maybe extra buffs, abilities. Perhaps. I saw a great mod that brought this unit in the game. Really well done model. The War Shrine basically a Hell Cannon shot from... it gave the War Shrine basically a Hell Cannon shot from the shrine. That would probably be too OP, but it was pretty awesome, so I'm kind of all for it. Now, some other notable mentions before I move on to the final section of the video. There's the Chaos Siege Giant, which I think would probably just be a Warriors of Chaos unit, and not go to the Mono Gods, but it could, all the same. I definitely think the Chaos Sea Giant will be coming in the Chaos Dwarfs roster, so we might not see it until then. But it also is it's a Chaos Siege Giant, so it works in the Warriors of Chaos just as much as the Chaos Dwarves. So why not just throw it in now, and then it'll retroactively go into the Chaos Dwarves roster later. I just fear that if they wait to bring it in the Chaos Dwarves roster, then they might forget to also retroactively add it to the Warriors of Chaos roster. But who knows? Then there are 2 other units that could get flavors for all the gods, and that's Greater Chaos Spawns. Now they could just all have this similar model, but be just recolored, basically, and given some unique stats, just like the Chaos Spawn are done. But then we see mods that give unique looks to this Chaos Spawn, and I kind of wish they would do more with the flavors. But who knows? Maybe in this Warriors of Chaos rework, they have done that with the Spawn. I don't know the answer to that yet. There are some named Greater Chaos Spawns as well, like the Blood Beast of Khorne, the Plague Beast of Nurgle, the Fiends of Slaanesh. Now, these are not the same Fiends as we see in the game. So there's 2 type of monsters named Fiends for Slaanesh. There's the Demon version and then the Chaos Spawn version. So this is what We're talking about the Chaos Spawn version, so I'll call it the Greater Fiend of Slaanesh, I guess. So, again, Blood Beast of Khorne, Plague Beast of Nurgle, the Greater Fiend of Slaanesh, then the Firewyrm of Tzeentch, and then maybe for Undivided we get the Undivided Greater Chaos Spawn. So just doing a quick overview of these Greater Chaos Spawn, who all actually got their own artwork. Not their own models, but their own artwork, at least. So, for the Blood Beasts of Khorne, it's a type of Chaos Spawn that has inherited the characteristics of its patron god. Like all aspects of Khorne, the Blood Beast is a battle-maddened creature that lives only to take lives and harvest skulls in the name of the Blood God. So, as we see in this artwork, it's basically somewhat along the lines of the size of probably a brood horror, and has a scythe for an arm. So it may, be like a anti-large hunting character, sort of like the snow leopard, but more the size and strength of a, brood horror, definitely stronger than a brood horror. But the only thing is, if it were to be like this model, it would be very close, I think, to the Slaughter Brute in its role. So, Scylla Anfengrim is referred to as a blood beast. And he is basically, looks like a giant red gorilla with a ankylosaurus tail, the dinosaur with a club tail. Plus, with spikes growing out of him, like a lot of Chaos Spawn things do. Then there's the Greater Fiend of Slaanesh. Sinuous and twisted, the Greater Fiends are the Chaos Spawn of the Dark Prince. Their long, scaly bodies move with deceptive speed, often surprising opponents before their time to react. There's time to react. So the model could work. It looks like you took a human and totally deformed it into what a mockery of what the demon form of fiends are in the game now, with the seeker type head, but the scorpion tail and the legs and all that. Now this could work. We could also see it, maybe the Drider idea I had could kind of take this spot. Or this giant Chaos Spawn, old, literally black and white model. Kind of looks something between a Chaos Spawn and the Demon Fiends we have, so maybe that could work. Then we have the Firewyrm of Tzeentch, which of all the models has the best probably chance of staying similar to what it is. So I would think they would be in the ballpark size of like a Manticore or Wyvern, like a small flying single entity monster. Would have breath attacks probably, maybe to make it a little more different than dragons. And because it's a Tzeentch monster, it could have ammo with its breaths instead of it being a bound ability. Maybe it has, 15 shots of its fire breath. So it acts somewhat between like a dragon and the burning chariot of Tzeentch. It could act like that. But yeah, perhaps the most perfect example of the gifts granted by the Lord of Change, the Firewyrm is a personification of its god. Its body is an ever-changing mass of pseudopods, tentacles, and clawed limbs that spew multicolored flames, sowing mutation in their wake. So, a lot, just like kind of like the Mutalith Vortex beast, maybe, or Morgar, it has some kind of ability that can mutate enemies into Forsaken or Chaos Spawn, or I don't know. The Plague Beast of Nurgle is a seething mass of boils, lashing limbs, and diseased mouths. The Plague Beast of Nurgle is a Chaos Spawn devoted to the Lord of Decay. Now, this model, I don't really know what you would do with it. It's too close to the Beast of Nurgle currently. So it would need to change. I think maybe they could morph it into the Bounder Beast. Maybe. So the Bounder Beast could possibly act like a salamander, an ancient salamander. There's also another possible Nurgle unit called Sludge Grubs that could act like salamanders, I guess. Or the Sludge Grubs would act something like something between Nurglings and the salamander hunting pack. Whereas the Bounder Beast, I could see working like something between the ancient salamander and a plague toad. So that's just an idea of what we could morph that into. But then, of course, there's the undivided spawn, as I talked about. Truly vast monsters that feed off magic. They are even more unpredictable in nature and appearance than their smaller kin. Eventually, they will explode when they can no longer contain the energy stored within it. So, like the weird spawn, I can't remember in the game if they actually have the ability, but the weird spawn ROR, at least in lore, can explode in massive amounts of chaos energy come. It's just an explosion, basically, out of them that will kill or mutate anybody in its wake. So maybe the Great Chaos Spawn could have an ability like that. Like every 30 to 60 seconds in combat, it just releases a bound explosion. But yeah, one last thing on the Greater Chaos Spawns. What could really make them stand out as an SEM is that, like their smaller kin, could be unbreakable, but they'd be semi-fast with very high weapon strength, but they'd be squishy. They'd be like a chaos spawn, but a greater version of it. Another notable mention, last one, will be the Great Spine Chaos Beasts. Kinda might fit a similar role, but so they'd be like about the size of brood horrors. Basically, they'd just be really mutated chaos warhounds that get to the size of like a brood horror ish. They would just each of these units of Great Spine Chaos Beasts could be flavored for each god, have their own aesthetics and stats. Could be a useful unit. So, anywho, this video ended up being longer than I thought it would be to make and just its runtime. So I'm going to be breaking it into two parts. This first one being the monsters that could be coming to the DLC for the Warriors of Chaos, or FLC, or with the update. Then the next one will be all about the champions of that may be coming. So think lords, heroes, chosen variants, but especially aspiring champion variants. So yeah, that's all I got for today. Hope you enjoyed this. In the comments, tell me what units you're excited for most. Is there some you just don't want to see? That I mentioned here. Is there something I didn't mention here that you'd like to see? Now, keep in mind, there are some monsters that might fit the mono gods more that I did not mention, which I'll hopefully I'll get to in a later video. I plan to, at least. So yeah, let me know. Like, comment, subscribes, all them things. Help me build my channel up. You gotta get 1K subscribers and 10,000 watch hours, I think, to partnership, which means you start making money. So help me out if you like my stuff. And yeah, stay tuned for that second Chaos Units video that will be coming out most likely tomorrow. I'm going to release this one tonight, and then tomorrow, whenever I finish the next one, it'll come out. So, anyways, stay tuned, and all that stuff. Hope everybody has a spectacular day. This week, we should be seeing some teasers come out for the 4 champions of the DLC pack. Even though we already know who they are, but the hype train stays real, stays rolling, baby. All right. Well, catch y'all later. Peace.